Hey everybody, Brett from AstartesGaming here, back with some more Mount Blade 2 Bannerlord coverage. We're checking out the dev blog released earlier this week, a couple days ago, which is a Q&A with the head man, Armagan Yavuz. And basically it just goes through, asks some fairly softball questions. They don't really get into anything too nitty-gritty here. As always, I'll have a link in the description if you'd rather just read it for yourself. But I'm going to go through it for anybody looking to maybe get some insights or stir up a little bit of discussion. So let's go ahead and take a look. Basically, this is just like their introduction to the dev team Q&A. They are going to talk to several people. He, of course, is just the first. And we don't need to know any of this. He is, of course, the founder, as well as the lead game designer and game director and CEO and every other title you can think of. And so, what does he do during the day? He says most of the day is taken up by meetings. In the time not occupied by meetings, I do my tours around the office, and most team members call me over to their desk to show their work and give feedback, or to ask a question. I also played the game for a couple of hours to see if there are any problems. I no longer code as much as I used to, and most of my tasks about coding involve directing other programmers and doing code reviews. However, now and then there is something that piques, that's not spelled right or even the right word, my interest so much I give it a shot. Okay, so basically he's just sort of overseeing everything is what he does all day. What do you like most about Bannerlord? Is seeing how, as the campaign compresses, you as a player write your own story. I'm looking forward to finishing the game and seeing what kinds of mods will come out. Okay, so not really a satisfying answer here. You could write your own story in Warband, and frankly, most sandbox games are allowing you to do just that. So, yeah, I would hope that Bannerlord would allow you to do that because it's a sandbox game. What kind of mods will come out? So at least he's sort of thrown this out there like, hey, modding community, we've got you, don't worry. But yeah, that answer is not really giving us anything specific. So what's the most difficult thing that you've solved so far during the production of Bannerlord? He says, looking back, the biggest challenge for me was deciding on the general directions to take early in Bannerlord's development. Should we take the game to have a more fully fledged storyline? No thanks. Viking Conquest did that, and frankly, I wasn't a fan. Or, I mean, if they did it similar to how Viking Conquest did it, where you could basically just play sandbox, or you could choose the storyline, that would be okay by me, because that, leaves you both options. I don't want them to necessarily do a storyline instead of a sandbox mode, because, frankly, that's just, like, that's not Mount and Blade, It's a nice option to have, and I'm sure some people would prefer, or at least enjoy that, but I know for me, I come for the sandbox gameplay, and so while I might check that out, it's pretty much just going to get played through once and then written off. So no, I would rather have the sandbox, but if you're willing to give us both, then, by all means. Or should we aim for a huge but less detailed battles? It seems like they've struck a nice balance. My only complaint with the battles I've seen so far is that formations only exist until the first couple people in each one come into contact. Once two formations start fighting, it just turns into a mob. And some people have said, well, oh, battle is chaotic. Battle wasn't that chaotic, okay? They still fought in formations. If every Greek hoplite phalanx devolved into a mosh pit, they wouldn't be able to carry out any sort of strategy. That's just not how battle worked in pretty much any. I don't even. Yeah. Maybe in more modern times when everybody is sort of his own. I mean, even then you still have battle line stuff. I just never mind. That's the only complaint I have for battle so far. And then, should we drop dynamic text and go for a full voiceover? That would be cool, but, if the choice is get the game sooner and have dynamic text, or wait for them to do full voiceover, just give me the game with the dynamic text. I don't need voice actors. the nice little like nuggets and warband with the war cries and stuff are cool, but you know, I don't need every person in the game to talk to me. And frankly, games that do that, they tend to use the same voice actors because they can't afford to hire a ton of them. So you end up hearing the same voices over and over for several different characters, and it gets jarring, unimmersive. So don't bother. Give us the text. Let us have the game a little bit earlier. Decisions had to be made on the technical side too. We first needed to select which scripting system to use. C#, we picked this at the end. Lua or something we would roll on our own. And then I think I'm pretty sure Warband is on Python. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I mean, C# is what everybody's, or most people are using now. And then we had to decide how much of the code we wanted to move from our existing code base and rewrite in the scripts. At the end, we ended up leaving only the combat engine and lowest level combat AI and writing everything else from scratch. Then we needed to decide how to structure various components, how mods would work, etc. Some decisions turned out to be exactly right, while some caused problems and we had to backtrack and change them, costing a lot of time and effort. For example, we went through 3 different UI libraries and had to implement some screens several times over. Okay, so a little bit more specificity there, which is always nice. Nothing, you know, particular about the game though, other than we know what coding language it's in, and that they've had to work on the UI a couple times over. So what's he currently working on? Today I worked on the design of how army coherence will be affected as an army stays in the field for a long time, and how a player can keep it together longer by arranging its composition and spending influence. So that's actually a very interesting little nugget of information, because what he's saying here is that there's going to be more to managing an army than just is your morale low, high, average, above average, below average. It looks like we're getting sort of a integrity from, like if you've played Total War Attila versus Total War Rome 2, there's like an integrity thing, and you have to keep that up or your army can like rebel on you, or you get mass desertions and things like that. So this is interesting because that means it's going to be more difficult to just maintain an army, which I don't know if I like this or not. It's definitely going to make the game a little bit deeper and more challenging, which is sort of good, but it might be too much because there's already a lot to do in the game, and building up an army is just such a small and basic part of it that this might detract from that. I don't know. I guess I'm not going to judge this until I actually get my hands on it, because it could go either way. It could go either way. So what faction does he like the most? He likes to play the Empire because they are going through a period of crisis, and their situation presents interesting questions and opportunities for the player. Yeah, I imagine. My biggest gripe with the Empire, and I made a video on this, so if you want to hear more about it, check that out. I don't want to get too much into it here, but what they've basically done is they made the Empire a single faction, and then they cut it into 3 and made them separate factions. So the Western, Northern, and I believe it's the Eastern. I'm not sure which of the 4 cardinal directions. Excuse me, which 3 of the 4 cardinal directions they chose, but they chose 3 of them, and within that they're all identical. It's not like the Northern one is specialized in a certain type of unit or has a special unit available to them, while the Western has something else. They're identical from what we've seen. I also don't love that they went with like a first or second Crusades era Byzantine Empire. I thought when they announced this game and sort of described this setting that they were going to go for more of like a la Total War Attila again, that followed the Western Roman Empire. You've got barbarian kingdoms coming out of the woodwork. You've got the Huns running amok everywhere. It seemed like a good setting for a warband game because obviously the map would be very dynamic. But they've gone for, apparently they're using the 10th, 11th, and 12th centuries as sort of their basis, and they're picking from different places in the world and all sorts of influences. It's turned into a real mishmash to where I can hardly tell what's what anymore. But I was a bit disappointed with the Empire overall. I'm still looking forward to playing as them and seeing how they play, but I definitely had my hopes up a little bit higher than where they are now. So have you taken major inspiration from any real or fictional places? Apparently back when he started working on the very first prototypes of Mount & Blade, he had the great fortune of seeing this picture from his window. And apparently that's Yoros Castle, which is a majestic fortification that guards the northern approach to Bosphorus. He's always been interested in historical places, and over the years he was able to visit some wonderful examples. That particular castle was the biggest inspiration, instilling in him a great respect and interest in medieval craftsmanship and way of life. So this castle was apparently his inspiration during the initial development of Mount & Blade. So that's great. We really didn't get a ton of information here, other than, I think, this was probably the biggest thing that we heard from him, because I don't think this particular feature has been mentioned anywhere else yet. So, Army Coherence. And it says, staying in the field for a long time. So basically, when you're not garrisoned in a castle, when you're out running around the map, you're actually going to have to manage your army now. Apparently, composition can affect that, so maybe having a lot of foot soldiers slogging around are going to get tired and pissed off quicker than a bunch of cavalry that can ride their horses everywhere. You also have influence to spend, which is something, one of the few things that we've heard mentioned from diplomacy. So apparently influence is not just going to affect your relations with other lords, it's also going to affect stuff within your own army or party, which is interesting. So that's something we'll have to learn more about. That's it for today, though. That's everything that they've covered in their Q&A. I guess I'll see you guys in a couple of days when the next one comes out. I'm going to try to stay on top of these and release them. I don't know if I'll be able to do them on Thursday, but like Friday, the immediate day after, I'll do my best to do. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I had a great time talking about some Bannerlord with you, as I always do, and I look forward to seeing you guys back here for the next video.